Hello and welcome to another part of my series on Godot XR Tools. Sorry that it took a while to put this together. I attended GDC last month and took a bit of time off to recharge as I picked up a flu somewhere. In today's video, we are going to have a look at XR Tools Snapzones. These allow you to attach pickable objects to another object. In order to ensure consistent behavior, pickable objects will change physics layers as they are picked up or attached to a snapzone. To make life easier, we'll name a few of these layers in our project settings. Layer 1 we will call Static World and will contain all our objects that don't move. Layer 2 we will call Dynamic World and will contain all objects we can push around. Layer 3 we call Objects and will contain all objects that we can pick up. Layer 17 we call Held Object and will contain all objects we picked up. And finally, Layer 20 we call Player Body and will contain all player-related objects. I'll leave a link in the description that provides details about other physics layers XR Tools uses. We're going to start by creating a new scene for a board on which we can place some tools. To visualize this board, we add a mesh instance. We rename this to board. We create a box mesh and size it appropriately. And move it upwards. Now we'll save this scene. Before we continue with the toolboard, let's place it on the table in our main scene. We simply add it as a child of one of our tables and move it into position. We need to create an object we can place on our toolboard. We create a new inherited scene and select Pickable TSCN. This next bit should be familiar from our previous video. Here we are using a GLTF asset I've downloaded from opengamearts.org. We simply drag this in. We'll move the axe down by 0.35 meters. We'll add a box shape as our collision shape to the collision node and size this box shape to fit the haft of our axe. Now we add a second collision node to our scene and create another box shape. This is shaped around our axe's head. Just like in our last video, we add grab points for our left and right hand. We also add a grab point for our snap zone. Make sure this node is placed after the nodes for the left and right hand. Now we create a highlight visible node so we can highlight the axe when we grab it. We add a mesh instance as a child node. We show editable children on our axe node. This allows us to see the mesh instance for our axe. We copy the mesh for our axe and paste it on our highlight mesh instance. We also need to move our highlight mesh down by 0.35 meters. We still need to set up our highlight material. We'll do this slightly differently than last time. We create a new material on the mesh instance. We select Unshaded. We set the cull mode to front. We tick grow. We set the grow amount to 0.002. And we change the color to yellow. Now we save this material as we'll be using this more in the future. Now we save our axe scene. Next we add our axe as a child object of our table and move it into place. Let's go back to our toolboard scene. We can add our snapzone scene directly at this point, but it is nicer to inherit this scene and dress it up a bit. Let's rename this to Axe Snapzone. We only want to be able to snap an axe to the snapzone, so we set our snap require field. For this to work, we also need to adjust our axe scene. So let's quickly save our snap point and go back to our axe scene. Go to the Node tab, select Groups, and add a group called Axe. Back in our Axe Snapzone scene, we change our snap mode to Range. This mode means that any axe that comes near our snap zone will be attached to the snap zone. Dropped means that you need to release the axe on the snap zone for it to snap. We add a highlight ring to our snap zone so it shows something can be attached here. Next we drag our axe into this scene as well, and move it down again by 0.35 meters. Next we zero out the X scale to flatten our axe. We turn on editable children on our axe, and we create a new spatial material on our mesh instance. We select unshaded. We change the color to black. We also move the axe forward by 0.02 meters. Back in our toolboard scene, we add our axe snap point scene as a child, and we move this into position. Trying out what we've built so far, we can see that we can pick up the axe, we can place it on the board, we can grab it back, we can even throw it at the board and it will stick. Let's see if we can build some more complex things. We're going to make a start on creating a gun prop. We'll make it work in our next video. Here we'll focus on using snapzones. We again start with a new inherited scene based on pickable TSCN. We'll drag in a pistol asset I found on opengameart.org. For some reason our material didn't get imported correctly, but we can simply fix this by assigning the texture. Next we save our object. We enable editable children on our gun to expose all its parts. We can see that our magazine is duplicated, with one magazine having some bullets in them. For now we'll hide the loaded magazine. I'm also hiding the suppressor, but that is personal preference. The rest is similar to our axe, so let's go through it quickly. We'll move the gun into position, we'll create our collision shape, just a box is fine, we add our grab points for our hands, and a grab point for our snap zone. We'll place our gun in the handgun group. And we create our highlight. We need to copy multiple meshes from our gun. Just the grip and slide is enough. And we use our highlight material. Now we add our gun to our table. We want our player to be able to holster the gun. We create a new inherited scene based on our snap zone. We call this belt snap zone. We make the snap distance for this a bit smaller. We set the require value to handgun. We add a mesh instance so we can visualize our snap zone. For now, we just use a simple sphere that we reduce in size. We create a material that will make transparent, set cull mode to front, and give it a color. And we save our scene. Back in our main scene, we'll add 2 of these spheres to our player body and position these in place. Quickly testing this, we can see that our spheres are nicely where we expect them to be. And we can pick up our gun and holster it. Let's have a look at reloading our gun. Before we can do this, we need to create a scene for our magazine. I'll fast forward through the bits we've already covered. We start with a new inherited scene that we rename to magazine. We'll temporarily add our pistol GLTF into our scene. We enable editable children. We'll add a new mesh instance to our scene and rename that to magazine mesh. Now we find the magazine node in our pistol and we copy the mesh. And we paste it onto our magazine mesh. Now we repeat this for one of the bullets, but we'll hide this. This is for the next video. Let's save our scene. We can now delete the pistol mode. Godot is smart enough to know the meshes we just copied are part of this resource. Next, we'll add a box shape for our collision shape. This doesn't need to fit the mesh perfectly. Next, we'll add grab points for our hands so we know how we hold the magazine. We'll also add a snap grab point. This we will use to anchor our magazine to our gun, so we position this nicely at the top. We'll manually edit the position and round these. Make sure to note this down. We add our highlight node, same as with our gun. Finally, we place our magazine in a group called magazine. Back in our main scene, we'll quickly place a few instances of our magazine scene on our table. Now let's hook things up in our gun scene. We'll use the magazine inside of our gun as a helper and add a snap zone to this node. Now we move the snap zone the same amount as we moved our snap point on our magazine. Next we drag our snap zone to make it a child of the pistol node. We also hide our magazine so we can see the gun is currently unloaded. When we load the magazine, it will snap in place and we'll be seeing that instead. However, we don't want the magazine to snap straight into the gun, so we'll add an animation player to our scene. We start with a new animation called Eject Magazine. For this animation, we start with a keyframe for our magazine snap zone. We'll tweak the timing later, but we'll move our animation to 0.5 seconds. Using our left view, we move our snap zone down and back to the bottom of the pistol. And we create another keyframe. Ejecting the magazine will simply move the snap zone from the loaded to the unloaded position, taking the attached magazine with it. At this point, we'll need some logic. We'll extend our script on our pistol for this. We'll create a placeholder function called onMagazineEjected. Next we add a call method track to our animation. And we insert a key that calls our method. We also adjust our timing a bit so it feels better, and we adjust the total track length. We also need to enable our snap zone so we can load a new magazine in. Now we can create another animation for loading our magazine called Load Magazine. For this animation, our first keyframe is for the position of our magazine, but now in the unloaded position. Our next keyframe needs to place our magazine in the loaded position, so we go back to our eject animation and take note of the starting position we have there. And we create our keyframe at this location at our 0.3 second mark. For this, we also create a placeholder method to indicate our magazine is loaded, and call that from our call track. We also want to disable our snap zone at the start of our animation. Next, we need to make sure that our snap zone only accepts objects in our magazine group. We also want to be notified when a magazine is attached to our snap zone, so we hook up that signal. In this method, the first thing we do is start our animation player and play our load animation. We'll also remember which magazine we've loaded, so we add a variable for this. And we set this variable in our signal code. We'll add an onReady variable as a helper that gives us easy access to our snapzone node. Then to eject our magazine, we'll call dropObject on the snapzone in our ejected method. We also set our magazine variable to null. In order to trigger ejecting the magazine, we need to react to a button on our controller. We do this in a process function. If we have been picked up by a controller, and this controller's B or Y button was pressed, then if we have a magazine, we play our eject animation. Just to round this off, we also want some sound effects. We add an audio stream player 3D node to our scene. We rename that to Mag Reload, and select our sound file we want to play. We add a keyframe for playing our sound, but note that this property doesn't stay ticked, so we'll need to edit the keyframe and enable playing there. And we repeat that on our other animation. We need to correct one mistake, and that is that we enabled our snap zone too quickly. As the magazine was ejected, it was immediately picked back up by the snap zone. So we increased the time of our animation to give the magazine time to drop, and then enable the snap zone. And with that, we can pick up magazines, load them into our gun, and eject the magazine again. That's all we have time for today. In the next video, we'll finish making our gun work. If you found this video useful, please hit that like button. If you want to support me more directly, please consider becoming a member of my channel. See you next time.